In this video you will learn what is HTMX and how it differs from front-end framework. And in this HTMX tutorial we will create a to-do application so you can see how we can build an application without front-end framework. So what is the idea of HTMX? We don't write JavaScript at all, we don't have some front-end framework, but we have some bindings to our default HTML. Like we have a click event on the button, now we can attach some attributes directly to our HTML. And it is important to understand that HTMX is extremely small. So as you can see here, HTMX gives you access to Ajax, CSS transitions, WebSockets using attributes, which actually means we simply create some attributes inside our HTML without writing JavaScript. And here is the basic example. We have here a button and we're attaching here hxPost attribute on /clickit, and here is hxSwapAutoHTML, which actually means when we're clicking on this button, it will automatically send a post request on /clickit API. And then it will take the markup which our API must return and put it inside this element, which actually means the whole HTMX is working not like React, for example, where we're building the whole markup from scratch and we have some tree, but we simply get from the API some response with markup and we paste it inside our existing markup. And the main question here is, why do we need HTMX at all when we have things like React, Angular, and a lot of people are used to them? HTMX is completely different. Essentially, we already had tools similar to HTMX where it simply swaps markup, and these tools are typically existing inside backend frameworks like, for example, Ruby on Rails. So the main point to remember is that HTMX is not an alternative to React or Angular, which is the full-blown JavaScript framework where we're writing lots of logic. If you have a use case where you need a small amount of JavaScript just to animate your comments to avoid page reloading, or just to implement infinite scrolling, it might be a use case for HTMX. So you typically write a backend framework with backend language and you don't want to throw a full-blown front-end framework inside your application, you simply don't need that. And the goal of this video is to build a to-do MVC project, which actually means this is the list of to-dos that we can add, we can select them, and we can filter them in different lists. And we can build this stuff completely without front-end framework, just with HTMX. And here I already prepared a small TypeScript project, which is a node with Express. Here is my index.ts, where inside I'm creating Express project, I'm setting views, body parser, static assets folder, and here I'm listening to my project. Additionally, inside assets I have CSS, where I have all styles which are related to our to-do MVC. And additionally, inside types, I have just a single interface for our to-do, because we need properties like ID, name, and is completed. And TypeScript is not mandatory to use HTMX, it is just easier for me to write code correctly by having TypeScript inside Node. As I already said, we are responding from our API with prepared markup. This is why we must install something that can generate for us markup on the backend. And I want to use here a package which is called pug. It is not mandatory, again you can use any package that can generate for you some markup. This is why let's jump inside console and write npm install pug. Now here inside the project what I want to do is create a views folder where inside we have an index.pug file. And here I already pasted some default styles that we need. As you can see here, the whole pug markup is built around indentation, so we are not creating properties like open and close tag of HTML, but we simply indent inside HTML, head, body, and then inside we are throwing scripts. And as you can see here, first of all, I put here two CSS files that we have inside our assets, but inside body I added two scripts from the CDN. And first of all, it is HTMX itself, and secondly, it is HyperScript. And actually, HTMX is using HyperScript inside for some attributes. This is why it is a dependency. Now here, let's write some basic markup. For example, h1 hello HTMX. Now we can jump back inside our index.ts and render this route. So I have here app-get for / this is our home page, and here we're getting our request and response, and here we want to use res render and we want to render our view. In our case, it is an index view because our file inside views is called index.pug. I'm sorry for interruption, but I just want to let you know that I have a membership here on the channel that you can join to support me. It will give you access to the new videos earlier, emojis and priority replies to your comments. Now let's jump back into the video. As you can see here inside browser, I am getting no default engine was specified and no extension was provided. And in order to fix this issue, we must write here app-set view space engine. And here we're providing a string which is called pug, which actually means we're telling Express that we want to use pug as our view engine. And as you can see in browser now, it works and we're getting our h1 hello HTMX. What we need to do now, we need to store our list of to-dos inside our Node application. This is why here on the top I can simply create a property to-dos, which is a to-do interface, and by default it is an empty array. Now here inside our render index we can provide some data, and this is our second parameter, which is an object, and here I just want to provide a to-dos property. This is exactly our list of to-dos that we have, and now we can render them inside our markup. So let's jump back inside our view and write the correct markup. Inside our body we need a class to-do-app. This is why I simply write .to-do-app and it will generate a div with class to-do-app. Now inside with indentation I will have h1 to-dos, and then we have here a form, and inside this form I want to create an input, and this input is with class new to-do. Now also here for this input we must provide some attributes, and inside pug we are doing it in round brackets. This is why here I can write placeholder what needs to be done. Then we can provide here a name, it will be a name string, and autofocus will be also an empty string. And actually here what I forgot, all this stuff must go inside header. So inside our to-do app we have header with class header, and all this stuff is situated inside our header, so h1 and our form. Now after our header we have a main section, this is why here section with class main. And inside we will have our UL with class to-do list. And at the bottom we will create our footer with class footer, where inside we can render our filters. So it will be UL with class filters, and inside we have a li and one more intended element a. Now for a, first of all I want to set href, and this is question mark filter all. So we want to make a query parameter where we can click and we're getting full page reload with this query parameter that we can use inside Express. Now here I will write all, and we can copy paste this li. So here we need two more lis, here filter will be active and our text will be active, and the last one is completed and the text is completed. Let's check in browser. As you can see here, we're getting our markup, here is our to-dos, here we have our form with the input, and we have here 3 links. And as you can see here, all this is just a plain HTML markup inside our backend. So one more benefit is it is fully covered with SEO, and Google can parse our website because it has predefined markup from our backend. Now let's talk about creating of new to-dos. As you can see here, we have a form with the input. And actually this is totally fine that we have just a native form from HTML. What we want to do here now, we want to provide several attributes. And first of all, it is hx post, and it is /todos, which actually means when this form is submitted, we will send a post request to /todos. And in order to test this, we must jump back inside our index.ts, and here we must create a new route. So it will be app post on /todos, and here we're getting our request and response. Now what I want to do here is simply write console log request body name, and here I want to simply send 200 because for now we don't care what we're returning. Now here let's type something and hit enter. As you can see here, we directly get OK inside our markup. Why it happens? Because actually our code is working. Here in the console we can see DDD. This is exactly the project name that we got inside post. So our post was submitted and we came in this part, but by default our HTMX is working in a way that it replaces the content inside the element, which actually means when we're writing hx post on any element, it is making this post request, it got something as a response, and then it puts it directly inside in HTML. This is why we see here OK. So the main goal is that we're making this post request, we're generating some markup, and we're getting it back, and we put it where we need to. So let's generate now a correct response. This is why we must jump back inside our /todos, and here we know that we have access to our body name. What I want to do now, I want to generate a unique ID. This is why here npm install UUID. Now here on the top I can import with destructuring version 4 as UUID from UUID. And if you don't know, this is a package which can help us to generate a unique IDs for our entities. Now we can go inside our app post and create here our new to-do. So our new to-do is of type to-do, and here we want to create an object. First of all, we have an ID, and we're using here UUID to generate an ID. Then inside our name, we're writing request body.name, and we have is completed, which is false by default. So our new to-do is there. Now we must update our list with to-dos. This is why to-dos push, and we're adding at the end our new to-do. And now is the interesting part. We must generate markup for our single to-do, but we don't have such template yet. This is why here I want to jump inside views and create here a folder which is called includes, and inside let's create a new file to-do item.pug. And this is exactly the markup that we will compile and use in order to generate a single to-do. So here we're writing that we have an element li and a class view inside. And here what I want to have is a label, and I'm writing here hash and then brackets. And inside we're writing to-do.name, which actually means when we're compiling this template, this is the variable. So we must provide our to-do inside this template. Let's jump back inside our index.ts and compile a template. In order to do that, we must import our pug library from pug. Now after our push, we can remove console log and send. And what we want to do is create a new template, and our to-do item template is our pug.compile file, and here we must provide the full path. This is why here I will use path join, and inside first of all we're writing directory name. This is our current folder. Then here will be views /includes /to-do item pug that we just created. So we're getting back a template, but not markup. In order to receive our markup, we must provide variables inside. This is why here let's get to-do item markup. And in order to get it, we're calling our to-do item template, and we must provide variables inside. In our case, it is a to-do, which is our new to-do. So this is directly a markup from our template that we can return. This is why here let's write res send, and we're throwing inside our to-do item markup. And just for you to know, we can console log here to-do item markup, so you can see how it looks like. As you can see here, we don't have any errors. Let's jump to browser and reload the page. I'm typing something here and I'm hitting enter. And as you can see here directly, we got our li with content DDD, which actually means our markup was compiled and it was rendered inside our form. And as you can see here inside console, we're getting li, div class view, here is our label, and here is our new to-do. Which actually means we successfully compiled our view, but we didn't put it in the correct place. How can we do that? So we must jump back inside our index pug, and here is our form. And what we want to say here is hx target, and here will be some ID, for example ID to-do-list. And what it means, it should not render the markup that we got back inside this form, it must render it inside this target to-do list. But we don't have this ID, this is why here on our UL to-do list, we must add an ID to-do list. In this case, it will put this stuff inside UL. And additionally, we want to write here hx swap after begin. And you might wonder, okay, but what does it mean at all? You should not guess, you can just open the documentation. We have here just a single page, and here I can find hx swap. And as you can see, swapping is the different way to swap HTML that we're getting back inside DOM. The default logic is that the content replaces the inner HTML of the target element. We don't need to do that because we have a form, and we're getting back a single markup of new item. What we want to do instead is to use after begin, and it prepends the content before the first child inside the target, which actually means this is exactly what we want. we want to prepend an element. We don't want to replace it fully. This is why we're using after begin, and it will prepend this new markup inside our UL. Let's have a look. I'm reloading the page, I'm typing something here and I'm hitting enter. And as you can see, our element was directly prepended inside our UL list. It was not rendered now inside our form, and this is exactly what we wanted. But now here we need some hyperscript magic. What we want to write here inside our form is underscore equals, and here we will have on HTMX after on load. And we're writing here set new to do dot value to empty string. And now here on our input, I want to add an ID new to do. So what HTMX does, it has specific event, like for example an event after onload, which actually means after we got back a response from our API call. And here we're saying, okay, after this API call was successful, we want to set this element value to an empty string. Why we're doing that? Because we want to reset the input inside our form. And now this input will be resetted. So this is kind of hacky way to write some JavaScript logic inside attributes. And as you can see now, we can reload the page, we're typing something and our input is clear. But now we have one more problem. Essentially, when I'm reloading the page every single time, our list should not be empty because I didn't restart my node process, which actually means we must see our to-dos that we created, but we don't. And it happens because we didn't render anything by default inside our to-do list. And what we can write here now inside our to-do, a loop through our to-dos. This is why here we can write each to-do in to-dos. And now here what we want to do is include our includes slash to-do item. And actually pug is not needed here, which actually means we're getting inside our index pug the property to-dos. This is exactly what we wrote here. As you can see inside our index, we provided a property to-dos. Now this to-dos is coming here in this each, we're looping through them, and we're calling our template that we just created to render a new element. And exactly the same template we can use to render our list. Let's have a look. I'm reloading the page and we're getting now all elements which we created previously inside our project. The next step that I want to do is to implement a counter here on the bottom inside footer. But it is quite tricky to do in HTMX. Let's have a look. First of all, what I want to do, I want to create a new view for our counter. And let's name it, for example, item count.pug. And inside we can write that this is a span and we want here an ID to do count and a class to do count. And essentially ID we will use inside HTMX and to do count as a class we're using inside our markup. Now here inside I will write hx swap OOB equals true. And again, this sounds like some magic, but you will see it in a second. Now inside I want to render a strong tag with property items left, and we must provide it inside this template, and here I will write item left text. Now let's check what this attribute does, and as you can see here inside documentation, hx swap OB is an attribute which we can use to swap our template directly. Why do we need that at all? So here we're adding some elements, and essentially we have a counter here on the bottom. And this counter will be never re-rendered, but we want to re-render it every single time when we're getting a new to-do or we're removing a to-do from the list. And in order to implement that, we can return the markup from this file, and this attribute will swap that markup by ID. So how it will work? What we need to do now here, we must jump inside our index.ts. And here inside our post, I want to copy-paste to-do item template and to-do item markup. What we want to create instead is item count template, and this is our file item count. And here we want to take not to-do item template, but item count template. And we must provide inside our property items left, but we didn't create that yet. This is why for testing, I will simply throw 20 here. And back we are getting our new markup, which is item count markup. And now inside our send, I want to concatenate to-do item markup with item count markup. And the main idea is that we are throwing this markup inside, and this markup also has an ID. and this ID is exactly this ID to do count, and now HTMX understands, okay, because this ID has this attribute hxSwapOB, it will swap the markup that we got with this element. Let's have a look. I'm reloading the page. We don't see anything yet because we didn't render this counter by default. I am writing something and I'm hitting enter. Nothing is visible because we didn't inject this template inside our markup. This is why here we must jump back inside our views index pug, and here before our filter inside the footer, I want to render with include our include/item count. As you can see now in browser, we are not rendering here a number but just item left because we didn't provide it inside our index template. This is totally fine for now, but if I'm typing something and I'm hitting enter, we are rendering here 20 item left. How it happens? First of all, here before in our markup, we already have an element with this ID. And now here inside our index.ts, we generated an updated markup with this items left 20, and we just concatenated it with our other markup. In this case, HTMX knows that it must take this item count markup and swap it with the element. But what we are missing now is getItemLeft functionality, and we can easily build that with a function. So here on the top, I want to create a function getItemsLeft, and this is just a function without any parameters. And what we want to do, we want to filter all our to-dos, get access to every single to-do, and get only to-dos that are not completed. And after this, I simply write length, which actually means this function returns for us the amount of to-dos that are not completed. Now what we need to do on initialize, we want to provide inside items left. And here we can just call getItemsLeft function. And additionally to that, inside our post, here we also have items left, and we can just call getItemsLeft function. Let's check if it's working. I'm reloading the page here, and now we're getting 0 items left because my web server was restarted. Now I'm typing something and I'm hitting enter, and we're getting 1 item left. Now I'm typing something again and we're getting 2 items left, which means our template is being re-rendered every single time when I'm getting a new element. But after page reload, we're getting these items back, and this number 2 is correct because inside our index we provided items left as a variable inside. Now we must do exactly the same with filters. By default we are providing all to-dos inside the list, and this is not correct. What I want to do here, I want to create a new function getFilteredTodos, and here we are getting a property filter of type unknown. Now here I want to check if our filter equals a string active, then we want to filter and return only active to-dos. So here we are using filter again for our to-dos. We are getting access to every single to-do, and we are checking that our to-do is not completed. Another case here is that our filter equals completed. In this case, we need exactly the same code, but we are checking that to-do is completed. And the last case is that we simply return the list of all our to-dos. Now here inside our index, instead of just providing all to-dos, we can provide here getFilteredTodos, where inside we must provide a filter. And actually we can read this filter directly from request.query.filter. Let's check if it's working. I'm reloading the page here, and we don't have any filter. I'm typing something, so we have some elements which are active. Now here I'm clicking on the active tab, and as you can see in the URL, we are getting filter equals active, and we see all our elements which are active. Now I'm clicking on the completed, and now we don't see any elements at all because we filtered them out and we show only completed elements, but we don't have any completed elements for now. But as you can see here, our styling is not the best one because we don't really highlight these elements. How we can do that? First of all, we want to provide inside a filter as a property, and this is our request query.filter. And now we can jump inside our index view and add some logic here. So we have here our A's with ref, and we can provide here a class. And here as an object we can provide selected property, and it will be selected when filter equals all string. Now here I can copy paste it and put inside active and completed, and we are changing here logic to active, and in this case to completed. Let's check if it's working. Now I'm reloading the page and completed tab is highlighted because from the query parameter we're getting completed. The next thing that we need to implement is removing of our to-dos. And in order to do that, I want to open our markup to-do item. Here we have our view. And after our label, we can add a button with class destroy. And what we want to write inside is hx delete. And here is our /todos/ and we want to concatenate it with todo.id, which actually means when we are clicking on this button, it will automatically send an API call, which is delete to /todos/ and here is this dynamic ID from the to-do, because we are getting full access to the to-do. But it is not all what we want to do. We want to remove this element from the list, and in order to do that, again, we can use hyperscript. So we want to react on our HTMX after onload, and this is our successful API call, and we're writing here remove #todo dash plus todo ID, which actually means we want to remove the element todo-id, but we don't have such element yet. This is why we must create on our leaf, for example, this class. And inside attributes, I want to provide first an ID, todo dash, and we're concatenating it with todo.id, which actually means this code will trigger removing of this li element, because the ID here is the same. Now we must implement this delete request. This is why here on the bottom, I want to implement our app delete request, and it goes to /todo/ and here is dynamic ID that we want to remove. And we're getting here access to our request and response. So what we want to do here, we want to filter this to-do out of our list. This is why here we want to override our list of to-dos by using to-dos filter. And we're getting access to every single to-do, and we want to check that this to-do should not equal request params ID, and this is exactly the ID of to-do that we want to remove. After this, we just need to re-render our counter. This is why here from the top, I want to copy-paste this code. It will be super similar. So first of all, we're taking here item count template, then we're recalculating the counter and we provide it to our markup. And now here we simply want to respond with our item count markup, which actually means this is the markup that will be swapped when we're deleting the element. Let's have a look. I'm reloading the page. I'm typing a new to-do. We can see that one item left here. Now on the right we have a cross. We're clicking it. It sends the delete request and we're getting back the markup that we're swapping with this element inside footer. And the last thing that I want to implement is to set our element as completed. This is why here let's jump back inside our to-do item, and here we have our view. And before our label, what I want to create is an input with class toggle, and this will be our checkbox. This is why the type here will be checkbox, and the checked property by default should be todo.isCompleted. So we are taking it from our to-do. Additionally, here we want to call hx patch, and this is /todos/ and we're concatenating it with todo ID. This is where we will send the request when we're toggling our element. And the last one is hx swap outer HTML. And as you can see here, outer HTML replaces the entire target element with returned content. Now let's implement this API call. So it will be app patch, and we're getting here our to-dos with ID, and here is our request and response. And what we want to do, we want to try and find the to-do inside our list. So let's get our to-do. By using to-dos find, we're getting access to every single to-do, and we're comparing to-do ID with request params ID. But it might happen that we didn't find such to-do, and we must cover such case. So if we don't have our to-do, we want to respond with status for 04. If everything is fine, we want to update isCompleted property for our to-do. So I will just inverse it with an exclamation mark. And after this, we want to re-render the whole to-do item and also our counter. This is why here from the top, I can take the whole markup and put it here. It will be exactly the same. But instead of our new to-do, we want to render here our to-do that we just changed. So we're preparing here our markup for to-do item, and we're updating our markup for our to-do count. And after this, we're sending the updated markup back to our element. Let's check if it's working. So here I want to create a new element, and now on the left I have a checkbox. I am clicking here, and as you can see, we got one more element. This is wrong, which means we wrote something wrong here inside our toggle. And I already see it. It is not enough to just write hx swap. We also need to say what element we want to replace. This is why here we must provide hx target, and inside we are providing the reference to our to-do dash, and here is our to-do ID. This is exactly this ID that we have on our leaf. In this case, we will swap not our checkbox, but this specific element. Let's try again. Here I am typing something, I have a new element, I am toggling it, and now it is marked as completed, and we have two elements which are completed, and we have 0 items left. Now on the completed tab, we can see these two elements. I am clicking on the active tab, and we don't have any elements at all. So as you can see, HTMX is not a replacement to the front-end framework, but a possibility to just use backend as a language with backend markup in order to bring some front-end features to your backend application without using the full-blown framework. And actually, if you're interested to know how to write reusable components in any front-end framework, make sure to check this video also.